Good day, everyone. I am Javril and Ronquillo. What I'm going to do is to present to you one of the most famous novel of Dr. Rizal, the Noli Tángere, that talks about the issues in feminism. First, we're going to look into the novel with its summary, and then I'll cite three evidences that talks about the issues in feminism. The Social Cancer by Dr. Rizal. A summary. Juan Crisostomo Ibarra is a young Filipino who returns home after studying in Europe for 7 years to discover that his father, a wealthy landowner, has died in prison as a result of a feud with the parish curate, a Franciscan friar named Padre Damaso. Ibarra is engaged to Maria Clara, the rumored daughter and only child of the wealthy Don Santiago de los Santos, also known as Capitan Tiago, a typical Filipino cacique and the dominant character fostered by the friar regime. Ibarra resolves to put aside all differences and work for the betterment of his people. To demonstrate his good intentions, he seeks to establish a public school in his hometown at his own expense. He receives ostensible support from everyone, particularly Padre Damaso's successor, a young and gloomy Franciscan named Padre Salve, about whom Maria Clara admits to having an instinctive dread. A suspicious accident occurs during the laying of the cornerstone for the new schoolhouse, which appears to be aimed at Ibarra's life, but the festivities continue until the dinner, where Ibarra is grossly and wantonly insulted over the memory of his father by Fray Damaso. The young man loses control and is on his way to murder the friar, who is saved by the intervention of Maria Clara. Ibarra is excommunicated, and Capitan Tiago is forced to break the engagement and agree to Maria Clara's marriage to a young and inoffensive Spaniard provided by Padre Damaso, due to his fear of the priors. Maria Clara agrees to this arrangement, obedient to her reputed father's command and influenced by her mysterious dread of Padre Salve, but falls gravely ill, only to be saved by medicines sent secretly by Ibarra and clandestinely administered by a girlfriend. Ibarra is successful in having the excommunication lifted, but before he can explain what happened, an uprising against the civil guard is secretly orchestrated by agents of Padre Salve, and the leadership is ascribed to Ibarra in order to ruin him. He is warned by a mysterious friend, an outlaw named Elias, whose life he had accidentally saved, but wanting to see Maria Clara first, he refuses to flee, and when the outbreak occurs, he is arrested as the instigator of it and imprisoned in Manila. Ibarra escapes from prison and sees Maria Clara alone on the evening when Capitan Tiago throws a ball in his Manila home to celebrate his alleged daughter's engagement. He begins to reproach her because the charge against him is based on a letter written to her before he went to Europe, but she clears herself of betraying him. The letter was obtained through deception and in exchange for two others written by her mother shortly before her birth, proving that Padre Damaso is her true father. Padre Salve discovered these letters by accident in the convento and used them to intimidate the girl and obtain Ibarra's letter, from which he forged others to incriminate the young man. She tells him that she will marry the young Spaniard to save her mother's name and Capitan Tiago's honor, as well as to avoid a public scandal, but that she will always be true to him. Elias facilitated Ibarra's escape by transporting him in a bangka up the Pasig to the lake, where they are so close pursued by the civil guard that Elias leaps into the water and draws the pursuers away from the boat in which Ibarra is hidden. On Christmas Eve, Elias appears wounded and dying beside the corpse of his mother, a poor woman driven to insanity by her husband's neglect and abuses on the part of the civil guard. Her younger son having disappeared some time before in the convento, where he was a sacristan. Basilio, who is unaware of Elias' identity, assists him in constructing a funeral pyre on which his and the madwoman's body will be burned. Maria Clara becomes depressed after learning of Ibarra's reported death in the lake chase, and begs her supposed godfather, Fray Damaso, to place her in a nunnery, unaware that she is aware of their true relationship. The friar breaks down and confesses that all of his trouble with Ibarras has been to keep her from marrying a native, which would condemn her and her children to the oppressed and enslaved class. He finally caves in to her pleadings, and she enters the nunnery of Santa Clara, to which Padre Salve is soon assigned as a minister. Analysis using feminist approach. The description of women and their lives and their fates demonstrates dissatisfaction with the treatment of femininity in Spanish colonial culture. The Catholic Church, a dominant institution then and now, is a bastion of patriarchy, the ideology that promotes men's superiority over women and children. We have here our first evidence. Room is almost full, the men separated from the women like a Catholic churches and synagogues. The women's group is composed of a few young ladies, Filipinas and Spaniards. They open their mouths to stifle a yawn, but then immediately covers them with a fence. They barely whisper a few words, and any ventured conversation dies in a monosyllables, like the nocturnal sounds of mice and lizards one hears in a house. Rizal's description of these women are soft-spoken, if they speak at all, devout attendees at mass, subservient, and might seem like a light-hearted poke. According to Saint Paul, on his part, gave a basis for treating women as inferior to men with this admonition. He said, "Let your women keep silence in the churches. It is not permitted unto them to speak, but they are commanded to be under obedience, as also with the law. And if they will learn to say anything, let them ask their husbands at home, for it is a shame for women to speak in the church." Okay, let's move on to our second evidence. Wife of a heartless man, she struggled to live for her sons, while her husband is a vagrant gamester with whom her interviews are rare but always painful. He has gradually stripped her of her few jewels to pay the cost of his vices. And when the suffering Sisa no longer had anything that he might take to satisfy his whims, he had begun to maltreat her. Weak in character, with more heart than intellect, she knew only how to love and to weep. Her husband was a god, and her sons were his angels. So he, knowing to what point he was loved and feared, conducted himself like all false god. Daily he became more cruel, more inhuman, more willful. In here, Sisa accepts her husband's oppressiveness as part and parcel of married life because of the patriarchal bias that the church and law had promoted, the ideology that promotes men's superiority over women and children. Lastly, our third evidence. He no longer lives, so I want to be a nun. The old priest rested his forehead on his hand. To be a nun? A nun, he repeated. You don't know, child, what life is. The misery that is hidden behind the walls of a nunnery, you don't know. 1,000 times would I prefer to see you unhappy in the world rather than in the cloister. Here, your complaints can be heard. There, you will have only the walls. You are beautiful, very beautiful, and you were not born for that, to be a bride of Christ. Believe me, little girl, time will wipe away everything. Later on, you will forget. You will love your husband Linares. The nunnery or death. The nunnery or death. According to Encarnacion Alzona, that as the chief aim of these institutions was to prepare women either for motherhood or for the religious life. There was little academic instruction. They were taught how to read and write a little, catechism, music, sewing, and embroidery. The school taught women that their destination is either nunhood or wifehood or motherhood, and their lives must thus be focused on the three Ks: Kirche or church, kitchen or kitchen, and kinder or children. So, based from the novel, we can see that the family, for its part, was successful in causing women to internalize their own oppressor or colonizers and men. The irony is that women are in charge of the very process that has destroyed them. Mothers have brought down their own daughters by teaching and training them to be the other to men, while raising their own sons by teaching and training them to be the one. Thus, sons have been taught and trained to be active, intelligent, and strong. Daughters, on the other hand, have been trained and taught to be the polar opposite, passive, dull, and weak. There are a lot of evidences of issues of feminism, like Sisa accepts her husband's oppressiveness as a natural part of married life. Maria Clara sacrifices her own happiness for the happiness of the men in her life. Padre Damaso, who fathered her, and Capitan Tiago, who adopted her as his own. Paulita Gomez plays the role of sex object to the hilt. Julie chooses to die rather than fight the friar, who stands as a symbol of male supremacy. That ends my presentation. Thank you and God bless.